Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name's Gunnar Hamlin. I'm a 2013 MPP graduate. And just want to thank everyone for being here, including members of the Visiting Committee, the Dean's International Council, members of the Alumni Council, my fellow alumni, and Harris supporters. Before I introduce Dean Diermeier, I briefly want to talk about 2 points, one being the One of 2019 Alumni Engagement Campaign. You may know that Chicago Harris and the university have launched a major fundraising campaign. In addition to that, they've also launched a campaign focused on actively getting alumni to meaningfully get involved in Chicago Harris. And so the goal is by the year 2019 to have 2019 Harris alumni who have attended a Harris event, such as the one you were all at tonight, made a donation to Harris of any size, or volunteered for Harris, and that would include things like if you've spoken to students, helped organize alumni events, hosted students at your organization, or served as a mentor to current students. So those of you here tonight with these little ribbons right here, you've already been involved in one of those 3 ways, to which we want to say thank you. And for those of you who are alumni without a ribbon yet, the good news is that for being here tonight, you get a ribbon for the next Harris event you show up at. Yeah, so it's nice. So I also wanted to briefly mention the Harris Alumni Fellowship Fund. The fund is comprised of alumni donations to support an incoming student. The first alumni fellow, Annalisa Danielle, is currently a first-year MPP student with a passion for fighting global healthcare inequality, so she needs all the help she can get. So Annalisa was attracted to Chicago Harris's reputation for substantive and quantitative policy analysis and by the opportunity for cross-disciplinary projects, like the graduate program in health administration and policy, to which she was just accepted. So we want to say congratulations to Annalisa for that. She also just finished up her winter quarter finals and looks forward to 2 international internship opportunities this summer. So she would also like to express her gratitude to all the alumni who contributed to the Harris Alumni Fellowship. And so now it's my honor to introduce Daniel Diermeier, who is the Dean of the Harris School of Public Policy. He most recently comes from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, and he is a fellow at the Guggenheim Foundation, was named one of the world's 50 best business school professors, and was the 2007 recipient of the Faculty Pioneer Award from the Aspen Institute. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Daniel, who will share with us the tremendous progress to date and his ambitious agenda for the future. Dean?
Thank you. Thank you, Gunnar, for the kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm going to spend about the next few minutes to give you a little bit of a sense for what the plan is, what we're planning to do, and also a sense of where we are and what the progress is. So maybe a good way to start with this is when I started my journey at Harris, which was about, let me think for a second. Tomorrow it's 7 months. Tomorrow it's 7 months. So I've just started. So I started right after Labor Day. But of course, even though I had planned to spend the summer wrapping up things at Northwestern and writing, I spent almost the entire summer meeting people, meeting students, meeting alumni, meeting other members of the University of Chicago community. And actually the very first thing that I did is that I spent a couple of hours with our graduating class of 2014. So I wanted to make sure, I had just been announced in June, that I still have a sense to get their insights. And what they told me was very powerful. And the original picture that emerged from that really was confirmed over the, I lost count after about 150 or 200 conversations that I had over the next 3 months. And I think the way I would describe it is that, this is a young school. We just had our 25th anniversary in December. And depending on how you count and when exactly it started, but we'll just say it's 25 now. It's still a young school, and there's a tremendous amount to be proud about. This is a strong institution which has done tremendous work, but I think there's also a sense that there's room for the next step. So the way I would describe the atmosphere, the feeling that I got from everybody I talked to, and that matched my own ambition, is that we're proud but we're not satisfied. We're ready to take the next step. And then the question is, what does that mean? And how do we get there? How are we really recognized as the leading public policy school in the world? And how do we get there? How do we make that work? And what are the steps that will take us there? And I always like to kind of give a little bit of a framework of how I think about this. And as we were thinking about the strategy for the Harris School, this is the following thing that I shared with the president and my visiting committee and the Deans International Council and a whole bunch of others. So there you have it. That's the way I think about what are the drivers of academic excellence. Okay? Reputation and resources. And if you get this right, suddenly magic can happen. So if you are an institution with a strong reputation, people want to be associated with you. They want to come. They want to study with you. Faculty want to join. Staff want to work with you. Donors want to provide their assistance. And that provides resources, and resources allows you to do great things, build your reputation, you get the idea. So that's really the two drivers, the 2 points where we can really move things forwards. We can help improve our reputation, and we can work on the resources side. And so what that meant as we were moving forward is we had to, number one, sharpen the reputation of the school. The school had a strong reputation already, but I wanted to be really clear about what it is that we stood for, what's our identity, and where is there room to grow, and then also to be clear about what types of resources we needed in order to take the next step. So I spent, as I said before, a long time talking to people, and the most striking things that was clear and reaffirmed when I also looked at the historical documents when the school was founded, already during the Committee of Public Policy, more than 30 years ago, it became clear that what we have at the Harris School is something very powerful. We have a core set of beliefs that our faculty, our alumni, and our students share. And that core belief, if I want to condense it down, is we believe that rigorous, discipline-based analysis is the best guide for public policy. That's what we believe. Now, you may be saying, well, what else could it be? Well, if you look around in Washington, you may have noticed that sometimes ideology trumps the best facts. And I think another way that's also important is that there are really different models of how you do professional education. So you see this in business schools, you see this in law schools. There's a University of Chicago way of doing professional education, which means in order to be a good manager, attorney, pastor, even the divinity school believes that, you have to know your stuff. You have to be steeped in the methods of your relevant disciplines and have mastery of them, because if you don't do that, all you're doing is talking. That's the University of Chicago way. There's another model, and the clearest example of that is probably the way Harvard thinks about its professional education, which is much more based on experience. So you have people that come into class that have been there, done that, and so forth. And that's another model. That's a great model. I think the Harvard model has been very successful and is unique and is distinct, but it's not our model. Our model is we believe that we're in the business of educating leaders that put evidence first. That's what we do. Now, that's great. That's a distinct position, and that I would argue in the current environment where data analytics and big data is kind of like the vogue of the day, is becoming even more important. But there also is a sense that we have to be careful that with all that rigor, we're not forgetting about the policy relevance. I think one of the challenges that we have had as a school, that with all the focus on academic rigor and methodology and tools, there was a sense, are we really making sure that our students are graduating with the management and leadership skills that they need in order to be successful in their careers? Because even if you have the best policy idea, you still need to be able to execute and implement it in an environment of competing interests, media scrutiny, and a highly politicized environment. And our students, when they graduate from the Harris School, must be able to be successful in this environment. Or to put it differently, they must be able to figure out what's best for society and get it done in a challenging, difficult environment. So I think we have a great core. If I want to use a metaphor from the car industry, we have a great engine, but there are pieces that we need to build around to build a great car. Those are things like management, interpersonal skills, and leadership skills in an environment where policy is actually made, and we're investing in that. So, clear identity, but there is another piece, another step we need to do. We don't want to lose the core, we want to reinforce that, but we need to add other things to that to make sure that our students are policy leaders that can really function successfully in the particular careers that they're choosing to do. Number 2, resources. So, what became very quickly clear is that the school, as it is right now, is too small. Now, too small in a whole variety of different ways. Resource-wise, so if you look at just kind of the revenue basis of the school, it's small. But there also is a programmatic issue that's very important that became very quickly clear. So, as Gunnar told you, I spent almost all my professional life in business schools, even though on my background I'm a political scientist and game theorist and do these kind of nerdy models of like political processes and policy processes. But I spent a lot of my time in business schools, and there is a lot that's similar, but there's also a lot of things that's different. And here's one thing that's different. When you go to law school or you go to business school, you go to law school because you want to be a lawyer. You may not know whether you're going to be a litigator or you're going to be a corporate attorney or whether you're going to work in criminal law or civil law and environmental law. You may not know that, but you do know that you want to become an attorney. That's not true of our students that go to policy schools. Our students that go to policy school, as they know when they graduate, a third go into government, a third go into the private sector, a third go into the nonprofit sector. What they have and why they come is because they have a passion in policy, but not policy in general, but in a specific policy area: energy, education, health. You heard from from Alisa, right? She came there. She had an interest in healthcare policy, global health, healthcare disparity. That is so typical. Our students come with a passion. And when they have a passion for energy or for health, 85% of our students, once they declare that interest, stay within that. It's rare that a student that comes in, wants to do education, later does cultural policy. That's rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare. So that means now we have around 10 to 12 areas of policy interest. We have 170 students per year. So you do the math, you see at that point we have like 10 to 12, 12 to 13, 12 to 15 students per area. That is not a sustainable area of interest. That's a dinner party. Okay? So being able to generate communities of people with similar interest, to have groups that support themselves, to have a rich offering of electives is difficult if you have 10 students that have an interest in a particular area. So from a pedagogical point of view and from the point of view of serving our students that have policy interest, we need to grow. And then from a business point of view, it makes all sense of the world because we are having a lot of kind of things that we have to have in place, and a larger scale will be able to us to do the investments that we need to do. So coming from a business school, I had to come up with a kind of cute little name for that. And for those of you that know the business school environment a little bit, Kellogg is particularly known for its marketing school. So, I can't completely get it out of my system. So I called this plan 2X by 2020, or affectionately as it's now known, 2 by 20. So our goal is to double the size of the school within the next 5 to 7 years, and our goal is to do it by 2020. That's the goal. Now, what does that mean concretely? It means concretely we will grow every aspect of the operation of the school simultaneously in a disciplined fashion in a stepwise way. We will make additional investments in what I would call key policy areas where we have been okay, but we just don't have the scale to really have a sustainable impact. International development. As you may know, 45 to 47% of our students come from international background. Many of them have interest in economic policy and or international development. Energy. Growing field, lots of, no pun intended, energy around that. Big initiative at the university, but that's something where we want to be a leader and where we have a chance to be a leader, given the strength in economics and the background of Argonne National Laboratory and so forth. Public leadership. We are not doing enough in preparing our students on the leadership side and really being effective in the policy environment. Data analytics and public policy, which is a natural continuation of our strong quantitative focus, but now in an environment of big data. And then we don't want to forget about education, health, social programs, which are traditional strengths of the school, and we want to make sure we maintain that and nurture them so that they maintain strengths. We will add to our offerings additional master's programs. Those are programs that have a specific focus where it's useful to have an additional degree. For example, we have a program in computational approaches to public policy, which is specifically designed for students that want to have a stronger focus on data analytics, and we offer it together with the computer science program. We have a similar one in environment and energy that's done now offered together with Argonne National Laboratory. So that gives you an idea. These are programs where we want to make sure that our students that have a specific interest and that would benefit from having other disciplinary perspective from engineering or the natural sciences can be served. Another big gap from my point of view is what I would call executive education, continuing education. You can think about it however you want to, which is really the ability for us to develop leaders that are already in positions of leadership. They have graduated a few years ago, but they want to have a specific set of skills that they want to develop, such as big data skills, data analytical skills, right? We just had some discussions about that over cocktails, is that this is an important area. Or if you are a mayor in China, you want to know about what's the newest in smart cities. Or we're having discussions with the government of India about how we're really thinking about energy policy with the government of Mexico. Those are tremendous policy challenges, but they're not always best addressed by just focusing on the master, on generating or bringing up and educating the next generation of master students. We also want to have a growing presence in undergraduate education. This is a changing generation. We now know, I just found this out a month ago, is that about 20% of the University of Chicago undergraduates have an interest in public policy. That's the same as the percentage of students that have interest in business. That's new. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. We're seeing more and more students that want to make a difference, so we're talking to the college in order to offer a meaningful public policy degree in collaboration with the Harris School. And then, of course, in order to be able to have the resource to fund all of that, we have engaged in aggressive fundraising efforts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well. So that's the resource side. We're sharpening the reputation, the identity of the school, and we're adding the necessary resources in order to be able to fund our aggressive strategy. Progress report. So I spent a little bit more time on that, but I shared basically the first two slides that you've seen with the president, with the visiting committee, with all kind of my key stakeholders. And the president and provost are fully on board with that. My sense is that this was something that was there from the beginning. There was a lot of support for the Harris School. Not always the case, wasn't always the case historically, but it's there right now. They committed additional faculty positions so that we can make the investments right away. And then they're committed to kickstart the 2x20 campaign with a $9 million pledge, $3 million over 3 years, which is a big deal for us and allows us to get going now, to hire the relevant staff in student affairs and development, and to bring in faculty as we are growing the overall scale of the school. They also have just been supportive all around. One thing that they've been able to do is to say we're going to commit to make the current building work because the building is an issue. If we want to grow to double of the size, I know 1155 East 60th Street is one of the greatest buildings in the world, but it's not going to accommodate twice the size of the school. It's not going to work. So we have to be able to solve the building problem, and the university is behind that. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. We have entirely restructured the organization, kind of from a situation where there were a whole bunch of different areas of responsibilities. We have key areas now. We've promoted people. Some people exited. We made a lot of choices. It was a very challenging environment, and the staff has done a fantastic job. So I am excited about the talent that we were able to recruit. I think people are engaged. You have to talk to them yourself. But my sense is that we're all behind that vision and we're moving forward. Fundraising progress. We have been able to get a major donation for a new building. So we got $30 million for the new building, $20 million from Dennis Keller and $10 million from King Harris, and $5 million in other support this year. Our typical fundraising progress per year is $3 to $4 million. So we're in a completely different world right now, and something that is going to just enable us to really kind of fund the growth that we need. New faculty. We've been aggressive with respect to new faculty. Here are 4 of them. I'm literally on the phone this evening with a couple of others. We looked at around 28 job candidates. We have another three offers open right now. But probably the biggest prize that we were able to snatch this year is Jim Robinson. Many of you may know the book Why Nations Fail, R.C. Morgan and Robinson, so that's the Robinson here. We snatched him from Harvard. He is arguably the world's leading international development economist, and he's now going to be at Harris. He's the first university professor in the school's history, which is another tremendous sign of confidence from the president and from the rest of the university. Many of these faculty members, as you can tell here, have foreign names. That's not an accident, right? So we want to really improve the international presence of the school, and I want to point out a couple of people that play actually an important role at Harris, even though they're joint appointments. Mike Greenstone is somebody I really want to highlight here, who was added to the University of Chicago, who joined last summer. And Mike we snatched him from MIT. He's joined with economics, the director of the Energy Policy Initiative at Chicago. That's that EPIC thing here. And Michael is, by all standards, the world's greatest energy economist. So that's a strong foundation on which we can build. These are anchor faculty where you can then build younger faculty around, and we have been extremely successful on that this year, but we're not done. And this is one of my priorities, to make sure that we're really getting the top faculty to Harris. New programs, I mentioned a couple of them. I mentioned the joint program with the computer science department. I mentioned the Master of Science in Environmental Science and Policy that we're doing with Argonne, Argonne National Laboratory. We also have a first-year program for students with a very strong interest in quantitative analytical skills that want to go to PhD programs. Some of them were at the MPP at this point, wasn't the right fit, so we segment that out. And we also have a mid-career program now for students that already have some strong data and analytics skills but want to move into the public policy side. So we're really trying to make sure that we have additional offerings. Now, the Master of Public Policy is a core degree and will always be a core degree, but not everybody is a good fit for the MPP. So we now have, for example, I would say 5 to 10 students in our Master of Public Policy program that really should be in this program here, because their goal is to get a PhD program, and we just can prepare them better in a different way. Our Master of Public Policy degree is a professional degree, and that's how we want to sharpen it. We started already, we're in the marketplace with executive education programs, which is not fully built out yet. We're just, hopefully we'll make an offer for a new executive director for the executive education side in a couple of weeks. But we already have programs on municipal finance. This is a program I'm particularly proud of. It's a women executive leadership program, a dedicated design for women that have been out of the workforce for a few years and want to re-enter the workforce and are interested in a career in public service. So we're going to launch that in the fall. I'm very excited about that. And then we have a whole variety of initiatives at the international side to provide them with continuing education programs. Just a couple of aspects now on the building. The building it's not the strategy, but it's a core component, it's an enabler. And what I want our new building to be is I want it to be a physical embodiment of what the school stands for, our identity. But that's going to take a little while until we can move into the new building. We are green-lighted by the Board of Trustees, which means that we have the authority to hire architects. We already met with the architects. We're not fully financed, but we're about 88% financed, and that's good enough for us to get going. And in the meantime, we have hired the firm Gensler. Many of you may know them. They're one of the world's leading design firms, to redesign the current space so that 1155 can be used for the next 3 years while we're growing. And I always had a feeling that our current space was not used efficiently. It's kind of like it just kind of grows. You add this, you add that. And so sure enough, we brought Gensler in. We're going to be able to increase office space by around 35% and student space by around 30% without adding a single square foot. So that's, and it's going to be much higher quality space. So I'm extremely pleased with their work. And that will basically allow us to inject new life in the space, add facilities, and be able to accommodate the growth with respect to students and faculty. This is the Keller Center. Artistic rendering. Notice there's some cars here and people walking in, right? So this is kind of makes it more lifelike. There are people there. A little dangerous, safety risk, but never mind. This is the way this is going to work is that the Keller Center is an existing building that will be an adaptive reuse. So you basically leave the bones, you can think about it less technically as a gut job. Okay, so you leave the bones in place, and then we're going to basically transform it into a modern, highly functional space, new home for the Harris School. The crucial points of that is that it will give us first-class space on the Midway within 3 years, and we will have 3 times the space that we have right now. So it's going to be transformative. It had to be done. It was crucial, and thanks to the generosity of Dennis Keller and King Harris, we were able to accomplish this crucial milestone during the first 3 months. How you can help? I want to just give a couple of ideas. Yes, making a gift and contribution to, for example, the Alumni Fellowship Fund is enormously helpful and huge. We need it. It will help us to move forward. It will help us to support our students and our initiatives. However, if that is not what you want to do, or it's beyond your financial means, there's a whole variety of other things you can do that can be helpful and can be hugely helpful. You can find an internship. You can help fund an internship, maybe together with a bunch of others. You can help with placement. You can be a mentor. You can help us make connections to people that may have an interest in the Harris School or alumni of the University of Chicago that want to reconnect. All of that is going on in alumni associations all around the country, and it is an enormously useful thing for us. I give you just 2 examples of how this can be helpful. One of our Harris graduates is the CFO of CONACYT. It's in Mexico City. That's kind of like the equivalent of the National Science Foundation in Mexico. And they have been able to sponsor 10 Mexican students every year that will join the Harris School. The quality of the students is fantastic. They have strong financial background. They go back, have top positions in Mexican government. Now, that wasn't his money, but it was the ability to leverage, in this case, support that came from the Mexican government for technical training anyway, and that could be utilized for this great purpose. You may know somebody that has a connection with the University of Chicago, wants to leave a legacy, has no connection with the Harris School. None. Dennis Keller has no connection with the Harris School. He's a Booth alum. But wants to leave a legacy and has been looking for the right way to do this. This, again, is something that can be extremely helpful for us. Participate in the One in 2019 campaign. You've heard about that. That's a nice way to get involved. You can participate in the Bosman Action, which is happening next week, which is, again, intended to support our students. So think about various ways in which we can get involved. Not all of them are financial. Some of them are connecting us with people. Some of them are help our students. Some of them help us identify students that would be interested in the Harris School in principle. But this is important that we have strong alumni support, and that's why I'm so glad that we could find the time to talk a little bit and spend the evening together. 3 things to remember. I consider this is our good to great moment. Okay? So we have, as I said before, we're proud, but we're not satisfied. This is our best opportunity in a long, long time to really take the school to the next level. And nobody should kid themselves in saying that this moment will last forever. There's a lot of energy on the policy side at the university right now. Institute of Politics, the Paulson Institute, the Urban Policy Initiative, EPIC, the energy side. There's a lot of thing going on. But 5 years from now, it could all be marine biology or astrophysics. I don't know. Right now, the university is focused on policy issues. That's a 2 to 3 year window, and we must seize that window. So when I talk to my staff, and sometimes I'm driving them crazy with my sense of urgency, that's where it comes from. This will not be here 5 or 6 years ago. It is the need is there, is real, and the opportunity is now. And then I cannot overemphasize the importance that alumni play for us, that you play for us. You are our ambassadors. You're out there in the field. You can talk about the Harris School. We need to do a lot of brand building and reputation building, especially in Washington. We haven't even started with that. And we're going to provide the resources there. But you are the people on the ground that can make a difference for us. So I encourage you to get involved or get reconnected if you haven't been involved for a while. This is an exciting time in the history of the school. I strongly believe we have a chance to take the school to the next level and leave a tremendous positive impact in the life of this country and around the world. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be open for some questions, and I know this is not a shy group. I've learned this by now. Yes.
So I'm an admitted student.
Welcome, especially.
Thank you. So your presentation was very interesting and very informative, but I think for someone sitting in my seat,
Yes.
listening to all of this, I'm wondering, so this, sounds great in 6 years. What would you say to someone in my shoes who's looking at entering the school in the fall? University of Chicago does have a very strong reputation. I was drawn to the school for its particularly quantitative educational reputation, but what in the next 2 years, for instance, where do you see the benefits of this?
Yes. So the first thing you should do is you should absolutely come to the Harris School. That's number one. Okay, but I do mean that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that are kind of strategy and where we're going and this and that and the other. But I think what you want to ask yourself is really the following. You want to ask yourself, right? You've been admitted to the Harris School. I'm sure you have other great choices as well. Ask yourself, where are you going to have the biggest value add in your education? And I can't convince you that the weather is going to be best. I can't tell you that the food is going to be, and the building is the best. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you one thing. We have the most value add in the education of any policy school. And our students, when they graduate, know their stuff. They know their stuff. They're able to be put on the toughest projects, and they're able to do it. And the fact that you're interested in, kind of choosing a school that is rigorous and that provides you with the tools that are useful, I think is already, shows me that this is a great fit for you. I think one thing that we're working on is to make sure is that this foundation really gets translated into direct policy impact immediately. And to just this is a little bit of a secret, but I'll share it with you. Don't tell it to anybody until tomorrow, okay? But I want to just give you one thing that we're going to launch that will be for you. We're going to launch tomorrow a new initiative which we call the Harris Policy Labs. So this is what this is. This will be a half-year immersion experience for advanced graduate students, for in this case our second years. And what we will have is we'll have a lab environment of of small teams. We're going to be supervised by a faculty member and by a mentor from the professional development point of view. And then you're going to be working directly with projects, whether that is in health, on energy, or in a nonprofit, or social programs with leading government agencies and with leading nonprofits. So what's your interest? Or give me some idea.
Well, I'm actually really interested in
criminal justice. Perfect. Okay, criminal justice. So one of the things we're talking about, it's not in the bag yet, so you can't share it, okay? But we're meeting 2 weeks from now with the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. And their job, as you may know this, you may not, but our new governor, Rauner, has made a commitment to decrease incarceration rates by 20% over the next 5-10 years. This is a big deal. It has tremendous policy impact, and I'm sure you're much more familiar with it than I am. So we will be working with the state of Illinois to utilize the data that they have to have meaningful criminal justice reform. That's what our students will do. Okay, and they'll develop the tools to be able to do that, and then you're going to work in the field with the policymakers that are already doing this. And we have done it in a couple of areas. We've done it in urban development, for example. And our students have now become effectively the policy advisors to the mayor of the city of Gary, Indiana. They're working directly with the mayor. It has been going on for a couple of years, has been started by Mayor Daley. It's a very successful program, and we're now adding it in a whole variety of other areas: criminal justice, health, economic development, and so forth. So that's going to be something that we're rolling out, which is consistent with our vision, but that will be beneficial already to our. We'll start it next year, so for you it will be 2016 and 17, and then big, shiny, and ready to go. Yes, ma'am. All the way in the way back, and then we're going to come back to you.
I might have missed this because I've been a little in and out of the room. but what is the school doing around gender and ethnic diversity in terms of domestic ethnic diversity?
Yes.
And then also, I see ways for alumni to be involved. Most of them are sort of superficial, sort of on the outside of things, and not at the very beginning in the planning stages. And so I'm wondering, how are you involving alumni as you start to develop some of these programs, which are all awesome, but
Yes.
you know, I would like to hear how we can be more help as you start to build them from the ground.
Great. So, first question was about diversity. The second question was about program development. So, on diversity, I'm going to give you two dimensions to that. The first one is with respect to women. So, I talked a little bit about that already on the kind of executive education side. I think this is something where we're doing good in terms of applicants, but where we want to be better is to provide specific career development opportunities for women. And women have specific challenges in this. You know, so I spend a lot of time talking to consulting firms to get a sense of exactly where the difficulties are. Because why consulting firms? Because they have thought very hard about this, about how to get this done. And how to think about this, you know, from a development point of view is going to be a priority for me. Here's where we're falling dramatically short with respect to women in our faculty. Okay, so I have 4 female faculty members out of 32. Okay, and I have 1 senior faculty member who is a woman. That's a disaster. It's a disaster. Now, it will take a few years to fix that, but we're going to be committed to fixing that. But it's very important for us to be strategic and deliberate about that. Now, in terms of minorities, we're doing okay in terms of the student side. I don't think we're doing exceptionally well. One of the things we really need to think about hard is so once we have them in the applicant pool, we're okay. The problem is, how do we get them in the applicant pool? And so what that will require for us is to have a lot more outreach in terms of like that really connects with students that come from a domestic minority background, and make sure that a career in public policy at the Harris School is attractive to them. I have a few ideas around that, but this is something that we're going to put in place specifically. Okay? Next question was on program. Look, doors are open. Okay? So we're going to have more of those. It's not the only time you're going to see me. I'd love to have this dialogue. I'd love to have the dialogue with you. I'd love to have the dialogue with the leaders, the local, in the specific alumni chapters. We have made pretty significant investments in alumni relations, and our goal is really to have active, functioning alumni chapters in all our major markets. We have them in some, but in others, as you say, people come in, no. We want people fully engaged. And we're going to support that, but it requires your initiative too. I just came from Mexico. I mentioned that before. There it started with 5 of our alumni basically sitting in a restaurant, drinking maybe a little bit too much tequila and saying, hey, we're going to create something special. And they have. So at the end of the day, there has to be some leadership aspect there as well. But we're very interested in that, and we're going to support this. Third row. That was your question. Okay, great. Any other question I have? Over there.
So my question is about, I like that you talked about the strong engine, and you said you have to build other parts around it to make it even better.
Yes.
And if you could talk a little bit about the leadership development aspect of it, because that's really key.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to see what the Harris School has in mind.
Yes, it's a great point. So it comes back to your question a little bit too. So here's how we're thinking about leadership. There's a lot of fluff on leadership development, okay? And we're not going to do that. You're not going to be shocked to hear that, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to be very deliberate and analytical about what are the specific skills that leaders need to develop. And I spent you may know Harry Davis, who's kind of like the leadership guru at Booth, at the Booth School. We've talked a lot about that. They have a particular way of how they're thinking about that. And there are a couple of pieces that we need to have. These things are teachable. You do them in a class, and that's great. And we're going to add that next year. Those are things like how to lead a team, verbal communication, visualizing data, negotiations, executive decision making. just to give you a flavor of that, right? These are specific skills that are going to be useful. Number two, we already have that, but I think we need more of that, which are what I would call public leadership. So that's now things where you have to deal with like public opinion, competing interest. If you work in an agency, you know, how to interact with the legislative structure and so forth. That's the kind of the politics, the policy process side that is unique to people that are policy leaders. So that's the second leg. Third leg is experiential. So when we do these policy labs that I talked about before, right, we want to have the leadership lessons that we have already developed before in the classroom, if you will, and now we want to put them in the field. So every policy lab will have two supervisors. One will be the faculty. So if you're working with the city of Gary and you're doing a statistical analysis of like, you know, like the impact of a particular work training program, we have a responsibility that the city gets first-rate work, and I want to make sure that our students have the support from the faculty to get this done. That's the next step towards doing it on their own a year later. Number one. Number two, for every one of these labs, we will also have a professional development mentor. So that would be somebody who, let's say, is a consultant at Accenture or Deloitte, or is a leader in the nonprofit community. And we have a big reservoir, being in Chicago, we have a big reservoir of these people, and their job will be to help the students in their professional leadership development as they're doing it, as they're in the field. So what does that mean? They have a presentation for the mayor, and what I want the professional development advisor to say, that is terrible, the mayor will never understand that. Go back, okay? Or, that's a great idea, but you know what? They have a union problem in Gary, you can never get this done. Where is this in your presentation? That's the practical know-how that only comes from experience and that I want to have as part of this development experience for our students in a meaningful, deep context. Not by climbing ropes together, not by doing trust falling. That's all fine. You know, we can do that in the break. But we're going to do, this is going to be involved and embedded while our students are getting ready to become policy leader in the world of practice. That's the vision. Nothing wrong with rope climbing, but you get the picture. Okay? Right there.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm just curious, when we're looking at mid-level programs, or programs specifically aimed at folks who are already in their careers, are you all thinking of doing things that are maybe after work to attract people who are considering pursuing a career or pursuing a master's degree while still in their job, or things downtown where it might be more accessible to those who are coming from, not Hyde Park. I love Hyde Park.
So do I.
It can be a little difficult to get.
It can be.
Times.
All of the above. So I think the way this segment works is that you have one thing are like kind of short, intensive things, like you want to have, 2 weeks in what's new in data analytics. That's not a degree. That's not a 2-year commitment, but you want to get in there something specific that you need to learn that you just didn't have when you got the degree 10 or 15 years ago. Or others that have a particular interest in an area, whether it's energy or municipal finance, whatever it is. That's one segment. The second question is, and this is an important one we have to think about, right? Is there a way to think about our master's degrees that are not offered in, you're going to go get away for 2 years, you get the degree, but something, as you were saying, an evening program, a weekend program, and so forth. Business schools have been doing this for decades, extremely successfully. So we're looking into that. We're thinking about, we have a first tentative steps in the healthcare area, and then if we do it, we're probably not only going to do it in Chicago. So we may do it in Chicago, we probably would do it in DC, and maybe one more place. So all on the table, we need to my sense was, we need to get this done first, and this takes a little bit more thinking, but you're spot on, we're thinking about it, and I think there's a great opportunity here, but it needs to be thought through, how are we going to do it? Is the business school model just the right model? Maybe it is, maybe we can just take it, or we need to change it and adapt it to the working environment of people that are interested in this particular area. Yes, sir.
I graduated from the business school in '56.
She wants you to talk into the microphone. I'm sorry, it's right there.
I graduated from the business school in '56, and 11 years later, I got the opportunity to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy for financial management, and then all of a sudden, it was a whole big new world.
Yes.
And I suspect there's a fair number of University of Chicago graduates like me. In fact, I can think of some even out of the medical school that you know, didn't come out of a school of public policy, but all of a sudden we got big opportunities. And
Yes.
had to deal with it and everything like that. I think if you picked up a number of those guys and brought them together to get some advice on something, because I think what you're thinking about is terrific. But some of us that have been through it, I think could offer you some ideas. That
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. That
Yeah.
would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think let me add another dimension to that. So
Yeah.
one dimension is, as you say, there are many, many people, and many of our graduates, University of Chicago graduates, that had a successful career in business or law in the private sector, and then decide they want to give back or they want to be involved in the public side. So, you know, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that I can think of and you can think of as well. So that's one segment.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, another interesting development is that as you become more successful and more senior in your profession, let's say you go to Booth, you have a stellar corporate career, you know, a C-level executive, the more advanced you become in your professional career, the more you have to deal with policy and politics issues anyway. And very often our interests change or shift in that direction over time. These are graduates I want to connect with. They're not Harris graduates. They may come from a law school. They may come from the college. They may come from Booth. But I think there is a big reservoir of University of Chicago graduates, friends that are connected with the university in a meaningful way, where their main interest is in public policy. Absolutely right. And Dennis Keller is a great example of that. You know, Dennis is a Booth graduate,
Yeah.
but his interest now is really how do we develop the next generation of leaders that put evidence first, and that's why he's involved. So I'm completely aligned with that, and any ideas that we can have to advance this forward, I'm all ears. We're doing something on our own, but the more help we can get, the better. Yes, sir.
Dean, I've lost track of where the presidential library debate is sort of going. But if that's to take place on the University of Chicago campus, which is one of the
Yes.
finalists, what opportunities or what have you been factoring in that as to the plans for the next couple of years?
So this is a whole nother can of worms, okay, the presidential library, okay? You know, it's a whole nother thing. And as you know, there are, bits from the University of Chicago on that. There is how exactly, so assuming it's successful, which is a big if, exactly how this is going to work is wide open. We've had conversations kind of programmatically what we want to do, but the sense of the university is let's get this done first, right? Let's make sure we're successful with respect to attracting the university, the Obama library, the Obama presidential library to the south side. And then we have conversations with the foundations about programmatic aspects. So there have been hardly any programmatic discussions at this point, certainly none that have been public. And my sense is that this is another tremendous opportunity. And when I said about the window of opportunity, I'll add that to that as well. It's clearly something, and you do not want to underestimate that. To be successful as a dean, you must have the support and attention of the president. This is humongously important, and we have that right now. And it's a tremendous asset. The president and the entire university leadership has been enormously supportive of the Harris School, and let's hope we get the library, and then that will kind of add even more momentum to where we are already. One more? Okay, you get another one. All right, good. You go for it. Good.
So in a number of other professions, there's continuing education requirements of a sort. There's no sort of certification or other mandatory requirement in the policy area.
Yes.
Perhaps as part of your policy sort of education or leadership or continuing involvement with alumni, have you ever thought of offering something for continuing education requirements, sort of pull the alumni back, have their agencies or foundations or organizations pay for that, assuming it's worthwhile and other training, but to sort of deepen the connections between the school and to sort of perhaps even bring in current students as well, to sort of do a little share the knowledge between generations.
It's a great idea, and we actually had like 2 different conversations on that today. So this is clearly a theme that's in the air, and it's a great idea, and it's something that where I'm looking towards you, not you personally, but the group overall here, in providing exactly what would be useful. What would be useful here? What's the type of things where it would be great to bring people together? And of course, it's a great testament, I think, and it's encouraging to us, is that there is additional need for like development and specific areas of that, and people want to come back. I think that's great. And all we need to do then is we need to put it together, figure out exactly what it is we want to do, and then we do it. Yes, sir.
So I graduated from the college. Is this on? Graduated from the college and took my public policy degree at the University of Oregon, but then came for 4 years to work with the Bush administration. And it did to a number of us that have Chicago connections have done some public policy work on the administrative level.
Yes.
But as far as I know, there's no database to capture that. And so the only way we could do it probably is to each of us to think of who we know that served in various administrations and provide that for you.
It's a great idea. I mean, this is something that's a real challenge for us, is that we know that there's a large number of University of Chicago graduates that did not graduate from the Harris School that have a strong public policy interest, from the college, from Booth, from the law school. And we need to be able to connect with them. And we're doing it in a kind of informal, haphazard way. We're not doing it systematically. So I think this is a challenge for us to figure this out. But there's no reason, even before we haven't, we don't have to have a super system in place. We just want to get going and capture that and connect with people. I think it's a great idea. And I think when we're on the plane back, we'll think a little bit about how we can be helpful in that and supportive of that. But I love the idea, and I think it's going to be extremely helpful to be able to reach beyond the core group of Harris graduates towards a broader community that has strong University of Chicago connections and a policy interest. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And I'm very grateful for your ongoing support and for coming out here on a beautiful night in Washington, D.C. And I hope we can still continue the conversation. Thank you very much.